Hello, everybody. Welcome to the SoxProspects.com podcast. We are the web's #1 source for information on the Boston Red Sox farm system from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Pawtucket, and all stops in between. Thank you for the listen. My name is Chris Hatfield. I am the executive editor of Sox Prospects, and I'm joined, as always, by our director of scouting, Ian Kundle, who did absolutely nothing yesterday or this weekend. Isn't that right, Ian?
Yeah, it's been just unpacking boxes and...
No television.
No, not at all.
None.
Why would you want to watch television?
Nothing at all. Nothing on TV these days.
I'm not dead inside.
I'm sorry, bud.
It happens.
So it is the end of November. We hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving with your families. I know I sure did up in New Hampshire. Ian, where were you? Because is your family with you right now?
Yeah, they came over for.
They did. Okay, so they're here in the States.
We had turkey.
All right.
And then I slept like all afternoon.
Not a boy.
It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
It was a lazy day. It was fun though. It's good to see everyone.
Yeah, we were up in New Hampshire with my family, and my wife, as I've mentioned a few times on here, is from St. Petersburg, and
Was it cold?
It was very cold.
It was freezing. It was like 14.
She basically refused to leave the house. It was not good.
I don't blame her. I refused to leave the house on Thanksgiving.
Not a good relationship building weekend.
Yeah, it was 14 here, so it was one of the colder Thanksgiving I can remember.
Yeah, but it's funny. So Thanksgiving, I dreaded it, as I may have mentioned on here or on Twitter. I've been vegetarian for a little over 2 years now, and I dreaded my first Thanksgiving because I used to be a turkey fiend. And actually not that hard because all of the sides.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing you can't eat, as long as you can eat like pie and stuff, the only thing you can't eat is the main dish.
The bird,
so
yeah. Or if the as the cat jumps into my lap, as you can see the tail right here, Ian.
Yeah.
No, but it depends on, things like the gravy. Like I had to have the mashed potatoes dry, which I was fine with.
Oh, I don't eat gravies
but stuffing if it's in the bird, but we didn't stuff the bird because we had like 6 people. So my mother only gets like the turkey breast.
Can you stuff a tofurkey? I
don't know. I'm not really into the tofurkey, to be perfectly honest with you. We did a lasagna with pumpkin and butternut squash. And for anyone out there revolted, I say don't knock it till you try it.
I love butternut squash. So
yeah. But we hope. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say. I mean, realistically, for Thanksgiving, all you need is just a thing of cranberry sauce, and that's it. So at the end of the day,
my wife makes this baller homemade like bourbon cranberry sauce. It's amazing. I still don't know if I like it better than the canned stuff.
No, you can't. Ocean Spray can is the best.
I don't know what it is, but
when I was a kid, I used to just sit there and I'd open one of those up and just eat it. Yeah. Like just eat a container of canned cranberry sauce. I've
been known to kill a whole can on my own.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's one of the simple things in life.
It is. Well, happy Thanksgiving to all of you. A little late. And a special happy Thanksgiving to our $5 level Patreon supporters. You can support the podcast at patreon.com/SoxProspects. And we want to shout out our $5 level supporters, Sox Signatures, Kirby Miller, Kyle Kostick, Tyler Woodrow, Jeff Trainer, David Nardone, Tim Harding, Ernest Shermer, Bill Stanton, Deb Kendall, Evan Kirkwood, Chris Fox, James O'Hara, Nathan Kenyon, Andrew Wallen, and Lendell Martin. Thanks to all of them. If I screwed any of your names up, I was doing that basically by memory because I don't have my glasses on and I'm kind of squinting at the screen, but I believe I got all of them. And of course, finally, send your emails to podcast@soxprospects.com. We want to talk about what you want to hear about. We've got a couple today, and we'll get to those at the end of the show. But just to give you kind of the roadmap for today, we've got 3 things we want to talk about. Rule 5 draft, usually not something that's worth a whole lot of discussion. We kind of pay it lip service here on the pod. But this year, the Red Sox Rule 5 draft protection decisions, guys to add to the 40-man, actually turned out really interesting and different than how we thought it would. So we're going to get into that a little bit. We're also going to wrap up the Arizona Fall League, to touch on the Fall and Winter Leagues a little bit. Not a whole lot going on in the Winter Leagues right now, but the Arizona Fall League turned out pretty interesting, so we'll talk a little bit about that. And as we promised last episode, we want to preview the offseason a little bit, and we're going to do that by going through the top prospects in the system and determining, are they trade bait, are they a potential 2019 MLB piece, or neither of the above. So those are our 3 segments. Ian, why don't we start with kind of really the biggest deal and the thing that I wasn't planning on us needing to talk about. the Rule 5 draft and the decisions the Red Sox made this week in terms of who to protect, and I guess another way to put it is the transactions that were made that day, because they also made a trade that day in moving a player that we thought was kind of interesting and we've talked about here on the podcast. So I guess just really quick, let's start with what happened on that day. It
was one of the busiest
20th.
Rule 5 days I can remember for them.
It's got to be, yeah. I mean,
usually it's boring, as you said, and we were just like, it took. I think the first sign that something was up was Mike had mentioned that usually we get the list by about noonish or just early afternoon, and it was like 4 p.m. and we were still waiting, and it was like, what's going on here? And then it hit, and it was like, oh, geez.
The funny thing is, so I've got a client who's in jail right now, and I was visiting my client in jail when this came out. Oh. So I'm reading all this on my phone in the parking lot as I came out, like visiting my client.
I was like, oh dear.
Yeah, no, I mean it's it's not a great situation, but yeah, so it's kind of a weird day. Sticking to the baseball side of things, let's start with the Red Sox cleared a couple of spots on the 40-man. I think they went into the day with 4 open spots, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah, they had 4 open spots.
Yes. Well, no, they had 5, but they re-signed Pierce.
5.
They re-signed Pierce.
No, Pierce gave them 5 because here's the thing. The only one that they removed from the 40-man is they outrighted Austin Maddox to Pawtucket.
No, and Cuevas.
Oh, okay. So, yes, thank you. So
yeah, they had 5.
Pierce they had 5, signed Pierce, they had 4.
Then they outrighted those 2.
Well, they outrighted Austin Maddox to Pawtucket.
They released Cuevas.
They released William Cuevas so that he could sign in Korea, where he's... No.
Didn't he already go back there?
No, he was in Detroit for that year.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah, Cuevas is going to pitch in the Korean baseball organization this year.
Make a lot of money there, so.
Yeah, apparently he signed with the same team that this week old friend Raul Alcantara signed with.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I remember.
It was an interesting week for old friends. Jeremy Hazelbaker got mentioned at one point, signing with the team. Yeah, weird week. But yeah, so Cuevas got released. Austin Maddox was outrighted at Pawtucket. No option to choose free agency, just he got outrighted right to Pawtucket. Which actually makes him, in theory, eligible for Rule 5, so maybe we can touch on that too. But so they cleared those 2 spots, giving them 6 spots, and the Red Sox
No, gave him 7 spots.
Gave him 7 spots. Okay,
yeah.
Gave them 7 spots. And what happened is the Red Sox chose to protect 5 players and traded for a 6th that they needed to add to the 40-man. So they traded second baseman Esteban Quiroz, who we've talked about plenty here on the podcast, was in the Arizona Fall League.
He hit really well in the Fall League.
Hit pretty well, yeah. I mean, it's a small sample, but he did have a good fall. It seemed like people came away impressed with him down there. I know Eric Longenhagen had a piece up examining all the trades that were made around the Rule 5 draft this year, and I think he called Quiroz the most interesting prospect traded.
Yeah, because he can hit
on the day. Yeah.
I mean, we've said it on here. We've talked about it. Like we've always liked him. We've had him, reasonably high around the top 30. When he's healthy, this is the issue. When he's healthy, I mean, he just can't stay on the field, and looks
I don't know
weird.
About that. I mean, he's been in the organization 1 year, and he had 1 injury.
Yes, and he played. But he
played. He had 1 injury. He had
24
hernia.
days.
He had hernia surgery.
No, I know, but when he's on the field, he's performed. He can really hit. I'm not sure. He's not a good defender. Can only play second base. And it was pretty clear that by them making the move, they didn't view him as a potential second base candidate, which I kind of find interesting considering they've already announced that Marco Hernandez isn't going to be ready to start the year. And it doesn't.
I don't think that's true. I think they said if he is, he won't be in the majors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess once they re-signed, they have Nunez and Holt already under contract though. So it's, so.
Makes sense. And he's missed 2 years.
Yeah.
So of course.
True. So they traded him and they got someone who they
traded for right-handed reliever Colton Brewer from the San Diego Padres. Brewer made his major league debut this past season, appeared in 11 games. The numbers aren't great. He did strike out 10 and 9 2/3 in the majors, but gave up 15 hits and 7 walks. So the ERA was 5.59. The WHIP was 2.28. That said, in AAA El Paso this season, this was his first season with the Padres. He's been with the Pirates system, the Yankee system, and spent this past season in San Diego. In AAA, Brewer in 48 innings struck out 63 guys. The whip was down at 115, 3.75 ERA. I find him interesting, Ian, and to me what this says is, I think you kind of started alluding to it, I took this as depth-wise, they like where Brewer fit better than how Quiroz fit on the depth chart, just in terms of being useful this season. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I mean the bullpen and the pitching staff is kind of their biggest question marks right now.
Area of need.
Kimbrel's a free agent. Joe Kelly's a free agent. They need arms, and Brewer, obviously the numbers in the big leagues weren't great, but as a good friend Red Sox Stats pointed out on Twitter, he gets a ton of strikeouts and ground balls, and he throws really hard cutters. And his curveball was 27th out of 273 people in spin rate last year. So he's kind of a Statcast guy.
Yeah,
his cutter was also 15th out of 104 cutters thrown. So he's the kind of guy that I'm wondering if they can get him into the Bannister lab and kind of work with him on a few things, because he throws like 96 mile per hour cutters, and that's not something that very many pitchers do. So he seems like someone who, obviously there's intriguing raw tools, needs some refinement, but if they can get the most out of him, like they have some other relief pitchers, especially in October with what they showed with certain guys, he's a prototypical, like, late arm in terms of stuff wise, what you look for these days for a reliever.
Yeah, that was another one of my reactions when I kind of looked into Brewers. He seems like a Bannister guy. I don't know that based on any inside information or anything like that, but Brewer, just some intel on him. He was drafted in 2011 in the 4th round by the Pirates. He was actually drafted by the Yankees from the Pirates in the 2016 Rule 5 draft. Not sure what happened there, whether, he didn't pitch in the majors at all in 2017. So I don't know if it was an injury situation, if they snuck him through, if they...
Was he a minor league Rule 5 pick maybe?
I don't believe so. I think it was real Rule 5, but it could have been minor league Rule 5. But at any rate, he was granted. He became a free agent after the 2017 season. Is signed with the Padres as a free agent, and like I said, he was on their 40 man, so that's why he wasn't a free agent this offseason. So he's intriguing to me. We'll see. He's prospect ranking eligible. We don't know precisely where he's going to go. Both Mike and I had separately, I think, kind of the intuition that maybe we just put Brewer where Quiroz was at, I think, 28.
He was taken in the AAA phase.
He was. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, that makes a lot more sense. But yeah, I could see putting him right where Quiroz was, honestly, and not just from being lazy and not wanting to update the page. He seems pretty much just about that sort of value to me.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we have like Bobby Pointer, who I would value similarly at this point. Yeah, I think he's somewhere in the around 30-ish.
Yeah.
Because he's a big league ready arm, and that's valuable these days.
Yep. But I think we also haven't even gotten to who the Red Sox protected.
This is the big. We kind of buried the lead.
So we did bury the lead a little bit here. So with all those moves made, there were 6 open spots on the 40 man. The Red Sox chose to protect 5 players.
Which in itself is interesting.
Probably most notable in that also keeping a spot open allows them to pick someone in Rule 5 potentially.
Yeah, true.
But in who they chose not to protect, probably the most noteworthy thing here is, although one of the players they chose to protect I found interesting as well. But no surprise, the Red Sox elected to protect Michael Chavis, the top-ranked prospect in the system on the Sox prospect rankings, the third baseman. Left-handed pitcher Darwinzon Hernandez, who we have ranked the number 5 prospect in the system as of right now. I guess letting you behind the scenes a little bit, we're discussing whether or not to move him up a spot December 1st. We don't know whether that's going to happen or not. And Travis Lakins, right-handed relief pitcher, who we have ranked number 16 in the system right now. Those were all the 3 no-brainers we had. The 2 other players the Red Sox elected to protect, the first one is Josh Taylor. We've told you on here that we expected that he would at least get consideration, and that if he didn't get protected, he was very likely to be selected in Rule 5.
He was the prototypical Rule 5 pick if he didn't get protected.
Throws hard, probably needs to tweak 1 or 2 things. Left-handed, right.
He's a guy you could hide for a year.
Yeah, and he'll be in Pawtucket all year this year. I could see him coming up. We'll probably touch on him a little bit later.
I agree.
The other player protected was the surprise to me, and that was Denny Reyes, the SoxProspects.com minor league pitcher of the year, the organization's minor league pitcher of the year, a right-hander who is going to he turned 22 November 2nd, split the year between Greenville and Salem. That was a stunner to me, admittedly. In fact, the day before, I said on Twitter that I would be shocked if they protected him. And I stand by that statement. I'm shocked they protected him. We've talked about him on here a little bit, not really the prototypical guy you protect, especially in light of the fact that the Red Sox elected not to protect first baseman Josh Ockamy, who we currently have ranked as the number 17 prospect in the system right behind Lakins. I guess I'll let you start, Ian. Really, the first three guys is really not worth talking about. We knew that was going to happen. Yeah. We've talked a little bit about the Taylor decision, I think, on here. So, Reyes Ockamy, and like you said, they could have protected Ockamy. They had room on the 40. Although they have
other fungible guys.
They do. Marcus Walden's still on the 40-man.
Chandler
Shepard's still on the 40-man. They're probably going to trade a reliever or DFA a reliever. I can't see them going into next year with all three of Thornburg, Workman, and Hembry.
Get non-tendered.
What's that?
I think Thornburg might get non-tendered.
Yeah, I mean, Thornburg could get non-tendered, and you've got Workman and Hembry are both arbitration eligible and out of options. I can't see them keeping both, even if it's a spring training thing, but still.
And they also have Robbie Scott, Bobby Pointer, those are fungible guys you could take on and off the 40.
And they also are likely to trade a catcher.
Yeah. So they had spots.
Yeah, I'm very surprised they didn't protect Ockamy. I get why they didn't. Yeah, I would be less surprised about it if they didn't also protect Reyes. So what was your take?
Well, I guess first on Reyes, I wasn't as certain he wasn't going to get protected. I kind of mentioned on Twitter, he wasn't in my projections. He was in my I wouldn't be surprised next tier group, ones to watch. And they clearly really like him. I mean, obviously, the numbers were really good, but it's just even at Instructs, just talking to people who saw him during the year, and it's yeah, I like him, but I mean, there's just not that much projection. The stuff is what it is. It's 4 average-ish fringy pitches, but he throws a ton of strikes. Obviously, I mean, he walked 19 guys all year.
Yeah.
Last year,
his career walk numbers are silly. I'll pull them up.
He doesn't walk anyone, which is obviously awesome, especially if in the mind is great to see. And he has feel for, he knows he knows how to pitch, and he gets really good extension. And I guess he's a spin rate guy too. But I get, it's just for me, I didn't think he would be added because he's just not the type of guy who I would see being able to stick for a full year in a major league team, because he hasn't pitched above high A, and it's not standout stuff that you can hide in 1 inning bullpen roles. It's kind of it's more like a fringy pitch type that fits better in a back end of a rotation. And these days you just don't see Rule 5 picks go into a rotation. So a little surprising to me, but I get it. I mean, they clearly, the organization clearly values him very highly.
Yeah. Just to give you that walk rate, he's faced 1,291 batters in his minor league career. He has walked 33 of them for a 2.6% walk rate, which
seems good.
Kind of good. That's very good. But yeah, part of me, and I wonder if the kind of brave new world we're in terms of pitching roles, when you have things like the opener, when you have things we talked about this with Jalen Beeks when he was traded to the Rays, where the way the Rays used their pitchers probably fit Jalen Beeks better than any role he would have had on a team like the Red Sox. Could a team have looked at Reyes and said, okay, here's a pitchability guy. Big kid, he's 6'5", 6'4", 6'4".
He's 6'4", 230, 240.
He's a big boy.
He looks the part.
He
looks like a pitcher. Yeah.
You notice him in camp.
Yeah, he looks like a pitcher.
Yeah, he's one of the guys who, when everybody's walking out to the field, you point and say, "Who's that guy?"
Yeah.
Maybe a team could stash him as kind of the long reliever, which isn't just the mop-up guy anymore.
A swingman type.
It's the swingman.
Yeah.
And he's only got to be on the active roster for 90 days. You fake an injury. Who knows, right? Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting sort of situation there. I wonder if, Same situation last year, even. Never mind 2 or 3 years ago, he definitely doesn't get protected because people who, when we're talking about protecting a guy or not protecting a guy who's Rule 5 eligible doesn't mean you don't like the player as a prospect. These international players who are signed at 16 years old are eligible for the Rule 5 draft, the 5th Rule 5 draft after they sign, which really isn't fair. It's the same thing for high school players in the U.S., which makes no sense because these international players are signing 2 years earlier. A lot of times you'll get a guy who gets to A-ball. They have guys eligible for Rule 5 this year who spent the year in rookie ball.
Well, Johan Ibar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but he's a little different because he changed positions. But
I mean, hasn't pitched above Lowell, and
I mean, some of the guys who are Rule 5 eligible now. Let's see, Johan Ibar, Victor Acosta topped out in Salem.
Christopher Acosta,
Juan Barriento. He played in Lowell, didn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, Juan Barriento was in Lowell. Edward Bizzardo only got promoted late.
Yorvin Pantoja was in Lowell.
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys who were in Lowell.
Eddie Reynoso is in the GCL.
Well, he changed positions.
True.
But yeah, there are a lot of guys who are in A-ball or lower who are international signees who are Rule 5 eligible because of how the rules work. So particularly with guys like that, not adding them to the 40 doesn't mean you don't like them. It means that you don't think he's going to get picked. And I mean, what are the chances Reyes sticks? Because the thing is, you could say, well, add him to the 40-man and DFA him. If you designate a guy for assignment and he's claimed on waivers, a team just needs to keep him on their 40-man roster.
Well, that's how they lost, what's his name? The Cuban righty, Dalier Hinojosa. Remember they added him to the 40 and then DFA'd him like a week later, and the Phillies were like, thank you, we'll just claim him.
Oh, yeah, during the season. That's right.
Yeah.
They brought him up for one appearance. I think.
Yeah. And isn't that what happened to Ben Taylor, too? Didn't Ben Taylor get DFA'd last offseason?
He did, yeah, and he got claimed on waivers. Exactly. Yeah, that was a little bit surprising. But it's so that's why, it's easier for a team to claim a guy off waivers than it is for them to pick him in Rule 5, keep him on the 25-man active roster for at least 90 days, or have to offer the player back to the other team. It's just a lot harder to keep a guy.
Well, and now they have one of their 40-man spots tied up in a guy who, at the very earliest, is in the big leagues in 2020.
I wouldn't put him in the majors before 2021 personally.
But yeah, he's not pitching the big leagues next year unless barring something ridiculous happening with his stuff or whatever. But at this point, I would say 2020, 2021, he's not making an impact until 2020. He's going to be. Yeah, it's an interesting decision because you look at.
Reyes made 6 appearances in Salem.
Yeah,
he's got 32 innings above low A.
That's what I mean. It's proximity wise. I think the takeaway is we like the talent, but proximity wise, it just is an interesting choice. But clearly he's someone they value highly and they wanted to protect. And the other thing I wonder is if they want to keep him in the pipeline and they don't want him going to another organization where new voices are talking to him and asking him to do stuff and trying new things out.
For the spring.
Exactly. So they just keep him. They're just like, we have a spot. As we said, they have, they had room to make open spots and they were like, we like this guy a lot. Let's just get him there and just make sure he sticks with us.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's interesting.
I tweeted this. It's kind of interesting. The last player who hadn't played in Double-A that the Red Sox protected from the Rule 5 draft was Drake Britton in 2011. The other players who hadn't played above High A under these rules, which were changed in 2006 to add an extra year of eligibility, because before 2006 you added guys who had only reached High A all the time. There was a year that the Red Sox protected 4 guys. I think it was 2005 or 2004. So that's why I stopped. 5 guys who hadn't gotten to Double-A yet. So that's why I stopped with this current iteration of the rules. But the list is Drake Britton in 2011, Stolmy Pimentel and Oscar Tejeda in 2010, Felix Dubront in 2008, and Argenis Diaz in 2007. And Diaz was kind of an interesting case because he probably wouldn't have been protected, but he went to what was then the Hawaii Winter Baseball League, which was kind of like the A-ball version of the Arizona Fall League, and raked to a degree he hadn't in the States, and that kind of made them need to protect him. But it's just kind of interesting that that's the list.
And Denny Reyes.
Yeah, and it's it's almost all except for Drake Britton, who was a Tommy John guy.
Yeah,
It's all international prospects, not guys who did much in the majors. I mean, Dubrant's clearly the best of that bunch. Diaz topped out as kind of an up and down guy.
Yeah,
Stolmy Pimentel was in the first the Melanson Hanrahan trade. Yeah, he went to Pittsburgh. Tejeda
was in that same trade.
Was he?
Yeah,
Okay.
he was traded to Pittsburgh, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, yeah, that sounds right. And then, Drake Britton, who everybody knows how that went.
Let me check. Drake Britton's pitching indie ball still, I'm pretty sure. Tejeda was traded to Pittsburgh in 2012. Yeah, he was in that same trade.
Okay, cool. But yeah, I mean, that's your list. It's not a lot of guys it happens with nowadays. And most of those guys, I mean, Stolmy Pimentel threw harder. Tejeda played shortstop.
He was a utility guy, yeah.
Yeah, he was a utility guy. Argenis Diaz could pick it. He was a shortstop. Drake Britton threw hard. Dubrant was a guy that could move quick. He was going to start the next year in Portland, whereas Reyes, I don't even know if it's not even set in stone he's going to start this year in Portland. As a matter of fact, I would probably say 66, 2/3 towards him starting in Salem, 1/3 towards him starting in Portland, and that's if he has a great camp. I mean, he's going to have to really impress in camp to have that happen. So, we haven't talked much about Ockamy, Ian. Left-handed side of a platoon, poor, not great fielding first baseman are not a Rule 5 archetype.
No.
Archetype.
I still think he gets picked, but yeah.
I think he gets picked and returned if I were to bet money.
I would agree. I mean, it's the way the game's going. He's not your prototypical player. Like we saw it with the Rays designated CJ Cron for assignment, who hit 30 home runs last year.
Yeah, but that's the Rays. I mean,
no, I understand that, but first baseman, like teams value roster flexibility for those for those bench spots at the end of a roster. And it's hard to carry a guy who can only play first base at not a high level, can't run, can't hit lefties, so he can take a walk and he can hit righties for power. Like that's just a hard guy to carry in one of your 4 or 5 bench spots for an entire season. And I think that's the calculus the Red Sox did is they don't think someone can take him and carry him on the roster. And at the same time, they don't want to have one of their 40-man spots tied up in someone who, frankly, you can go find guys who have that skill set, and it's pretty clear. They have an open spot right now. They could have added him. They chose not to. I think they have other guys ahead of him on the corner depth chart, obviously, with guys like Chavis, Dahlbeck, et cetera, some of whom are going to end up at first base. I mean, that's just what's going to happen because Devers is a third. So I think they did the calculus and they just determined that he was not someone who they were overly concerned if gets picked about sticking. So, he's a decent player, but at the end of the day, he's not in the way baseball is evolving. He's kind of like a old school type player in a more modern game.
Well, yes and no. I mean, you look at the Red Sox, they just signed a platoon first baseman to a 1-year, $6.5 million deal.
Yeah.
Steve Pearce. Granted, the reigning World Series MVP, but
he also could play left field, right field, and
didn't for them, and he's not going to.
Pearce played left field, didn't he?
Why would he have played the outfield? They've got 4 guys.
No, I'm saying he can play the outfield.
No, but I'm saying for them he didn't.
Oh, yeah. But he can.
And he's not going to.
He played the outfield.
Holt would play. Did he?
Yeah. Played 4 games in the outfield.
How many innings?
19.
Okay. Well, I mean that's a late inning switch thing.
Yeah. But still,
he probably entered the game as a pinch hitter. I bet,
yeah,
on a lot of
I'm
those.
sure.
So,
but I'm just saying he can play the outfield.
Fair, and that does separate. I mean, and that's what they're trying to do with Sam Travis is make him into that kind of player. I know Pierce has played second base in the past. That's not happening on this team. No. That's not happening ever again.
He hasn't played second base since 2016.
Okay, yeah,
and he played 1 game there.
That's true. All right. So, I mean, he'll play a little bit of outfield in certain situations, but his role, we can agree, is to be the platoon first baseman with Moreland, clearly.
Yes.
And they're keeping the spot warm. I would assume the hope is for someone from the Chavis, Dahlbeck, Ockamy trio.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, that seems pretty clear. or Travis. I guess you could put Travis in there if he gets his act together this year. But yeah, I mean, I think it says a lot about what they think about Ockamy. It's kind of interesting because I think the game is trending towards where, yeah, maybe that's the type of guy that a team could take a chance on if they think, we've got this we can fix. But, he doesn't hit lefties well. The other thing you didn't mention, Ian, that I looked up the other day, has a history of tailing off at the end of the season. Ockamy,
conditioning thing, maybe?
I don't know if it's a conditioning thing. It's also a small sample size. It's 3 seasons. This year, Ockamy didn't hit well in his late season promotion to AAA. Didn't hit well in Arizona.
I wonder if that played any role in it too.
I wonder if they also think, okay, the last thing the scouts saw, this guy is not hitting at all.
He hit 170, 250 slugging in the Arizona Fall League with 1 home run and 26 strikeouts and 64 at bats.
Which 26 and 64?
Yeah. Well, do you want at bats or PAs?
PAs.
73.
So that's a 35.6% strikeout rate.
That's not good.
Not good. But, even in the, 3 weeks or so before his promotion to AAA this year, Ockamy was stuck in a brutal slump. Now, that easily could be slump plus promotion equals, from July onward, he's not hitting well.
Yeah.
But he had a terrible end of the year in 2016. 2017, he was actually only a little bit worse to the point where it could just be statistical noise.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually
he was good in Portland and
he actually fared pretty well in Portland at the end of the year. But his best month, looking quickly, if you look at his month by month splits, his best month is almost always May. And you just wonder about the tailing off. Is that something they're concerned about?
Well, and I think another thing is the strikeouts. I mean, we kind of talked about it in regards to Dahlbeck, and I think we'll get into it a little bit later, but Alex Cora and the front office have mentioned it, that they want guys who can put the ball in play on the major league roster. And Ockamy has holes in his swing. He gets shifted heavily. He's been shifted since he was an A-ball because he can't hit the ball the other way.
Which, to be fair, is more common now. But
yes, but when he was getting shifted in 2016, it wasn't as common to see it. Now you see it all. Now you see guys in the friggin' Penn League getting shifted. It's absurd. But back in 2016, he was one of the first guys I noticed. I remember writing down because I saw him down in Greenville. Jesus, he's getting shifted already. That's kind of surprising. But so he's a dead pull hitter, and I think the strikeouts is another thing. The Red Sox want guys who can put the ball in play, and at this point, given where he is in his developmental cycle, he needs to close the holes in the swing and, work on making more contact in order to tap into his raw power. And next year, I mean, he's not someone I would, even if he was added to the 40-man roster, I would have considered, someone who could make an impact for the major league clubs. So, yeah. At first I was surprised, but the more I dug into it and kind of talked to some scouts about it, it's not as surprising as I thought it was, frankly.
Yeah. Sounds right. Yeah, but it's still interesting. Like I said, one of the more eventful Rule 5 40-man deadline days in recent memory. Some interesting decisions made by the club. So, yeah. Moving along, I guess we've alluded to the Arizona Fall League, so let's touch on the final results from out there. The Fall League ended on November 17th, so about a week ago. Red Sox had assigned 8 guys to the league, but 2 guys barely played. As we already mentioned that Chavis didn't play due to an injury, and that Teddy Stankiewicz didn't pitch at all. Pitched 2 innings before getting pulled. One would presume due to injury, but who knows. But just running down, I guess, alphabetically really quick, because it also winds up being the order in which guys are probably interesting. Bobby Dahlbeck, top hitting prospect at the very least down there. In 20 games, hit 219, 367, 425, 3 bombs and 6 doubles in 20 games. Struck out 32 times in 73 at bats. I don't have the plate appearances in front of me, but again, another high strikeout rate for Bobby Dahlbeck. Ian, what do we think? What do we make of Bobby Dahlbeck's time down in the Arizona Fall League? Anything new we learned, or no?
No, he is what he is at this point. We know what he is. And yeah, the AFL, I mean, he hit his OBP with 367. His average was 220. So there's a huge split there, which is expected because he can get on base.
Yep,
he hit a few home runs. Yeah, he hit a few home runs. He hit a bunch of doubles, but he also only had 16 hits. And 9 of them were for extra bases. I mean, that's kind of the Bobby Dahlbeck playbook. We saw it on display there, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with him this offseason.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Next up, the top pitching prospect that was down there for the Red Sox was Darwinzon Hernandez, who really turned some heads. I'll do the numbers real quick. In a relief role in 8 games, 11 and a third innings, only allowed 8 hits and 6 walks, hit 2 guys, struck out 24 hitters in 11
Seems
and
good.
a third. That's good. The ERA was 159.
K9, 19 points.
Yeah, I mean, he led the league in strikeouts per 9. He also, they released the other day StatCast numbers. Apparently, there was only one of the 6 stadiums set up with StatCast.
Yeah.
But he recorded, I think it was the highest fastball spin rate and like one of the top 10 curveball spin rates. There are certain players who appear on this list multiple times, but I believe those are the players.
It's specific pitches. So he had the highest fastball spin rate on any pitch.
Right. Good call.
Yeah. So that's why there's multiple.
Well, that's what I was about to get into was that there are players on there, like Nate Pearson was on there a bunch of times, but I think it was his home park that had StatCast.
And he also throws like 104. So
right.
Yeah.
Right. He's also Nate Pearson.
Yeah.
But
Darwinzon was like 97, 99 from what I heard.
Yeah, out of the bullpen. So, I mean, he turned a lot of heads down there, honestly, and I think he made clear that at least of the healthy pitching prospects in the system, he at this point, due to his performance in the Arizona Fall League, and he probably already had, frankly, but due to his performance in the Arizona Fall League, Darwinzon Hernandez has separated himself from every pitcher who pitched this year. So that I'll leave the caveat for Jake Groom because we haven't seen him pitch. Clearly the best pitching prospect in the system. The performance, the spin rate numbers. The question for me is obviously they're going to keep him in a starter's role. Does this advance the time as my cat? I'm looking at Ian and he's laughing and I'm like, why? And it's because the little jerk Cheeto jumped into the cat tree behind me and knocked a candle out of fake light up candle for Christmas out of the window. He's been
like playing with it for the last like 30 seconds and it's been quite entertaining to watch. Sorry. I think
should have seen coming.
On Hernandez, the curveball thing is more interesting to me actually because his curveball this year when I saw it was it came and go in outings. It wasn't great, frankly. But to have, I think he had of pitchers, it was like the 3rd highest spin rate, and it was like the 6th highest pitch spin rate, like of any pitch curve breaking ball thrown. That's the kind of stuff you can work with. And to see him, obviously he was getting a bunch of strikeouts, so it wasn't just with his fastball. So that's interesting to me. But yeah, I think the way he can help the team next year would be in a bullpen role because his stuff out of a bullpen is electric. I mean, I saw him out of the bullpen this year with Portland and it was good. And that was at the end of the year when you could tell he kind of was tiring out. But if he throws strikes, man, that's like elite left-handed stuff.
We talk about guys being future bullpen arms. And I think we wound up putting all those guys in the same box. Like Bobby Pointer is in this box with Travis Lakins, is in this box with like a Tanner Houck or a Darwinzon Hernandez. They're not all the same. No. I think Hernandez could pitch at the end of games, potentially.
Yeah, Hernandez has closer stuff.
Yeah, whereas a Travis Lakins, probably a 7th inning guy.
Yeah, he's a 7th, 8th inning guy. Bobby Pointer's like a 5th, 6th inning guy.
Yeah, I mean, so it's these are all different types of pitchers who potentially could pitch at the bullpen.
I mean, Hernandez, if you dream on it, is a lefty coming out sitting 97 to 100 with
a filthy breaking
ball.
With
an above average breaking ball.
And potentially 2 breaking balls if you can work on the slider. I mean,
yeah. And like his slider is going to be like, I bet if he comes out of the bullpen, I bet his slider would be like 88, 89 too. Like,
right.
The stuff would be filthy. So, but the thing is, you got to give him a chance to start because that's just more valuable. But given his command profile, I wonder because we even saw it in the AFL. I mean, he had 6 walks, 2 hit by pitches in 11 innings. Like,
yeah. Which it gets kind of obscured by the gaudy strikeout numbers. But I mean, he wasn't lights out in every appearance. He had a couple appearances where he just was filthy and dominated, and he had appearances where he, came out, didn't really strike guys out, got outs on balls in play, had a couple walks. And that's what he did during the season. It's just it's amplified when during the season it's a 5-inning start where he walks 7 guys, whereas it's a 1-inning relief stint where he walks 2 guys, which doesn't really stick out as much, but it's like, well, if that were a 5-inning start, that'd be a 10-walk start.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, he's not – hey, there's a lot to be excited about there. I still give him – unless I have to, or unless something backs up on the slider or something, I'd love if they gave him the full year to start.
I agree.
I'd love if they gave him the full year to start because there's still potentially a starting pitcher there. That's
easily. Still more valuable than a reliever.
Yeah, and it could be a mid-rotation starter, I think. I mean, maybe like 3-4 type guy. It's not like a number 2, but there's a lot to be excited about.
Yeah, we haven't projected like if he sits in the rotation, it's like a low end 3, high end 4, and that's just because of the command. If the command takes a step forward, this is all out the window, and we're rewriting the scouting report completely.
Yeah, right. We mentioned Josh Ockamy, so real quick: 172 average, 280 on base, 250 slug, 26 strikeouts and 64 at bats over 18 games. Not a great showing from him. Esteban Quiroz, the faithfully departed, 267, 452 on base, 511 slugging. The other thing we didn't mention with Quiroz, again, potentially at the peak of his value after an excellent fall league. A position where they've got a lot of depth. If you count Holt, Nunez, Lynn, even like a Chad De La Guerra potentially, they've got a lot of guys at second base. It's a Dombrowski trade archetype. Mike Schwarin in relief and Josh Taylor in relief. It's kind of funny. Schwarin, 9 games, 12 and 2/3 innings pitched. It looks like Mesa was bullpenning because Schwarin and Taylor both have starts.
I don't think there's really starters in the AFL. Or
no, there are. But consider that Stankiewicz was a starter and then left. So I think
but they only throw like 3 innings, right?
No,
or do they
throw
have
a little more than that?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, guys stand for a little longer. They're not throwing 9 innings, but they're throwing longer than the relievers do. But yeah, Schwarin in 9 games, 12 and 2/3, 11 hits, 3 runs, 4 walks, 15 strikeouts. Nice little fall league for him. Same thing could be said for Taylor, who in 10 games, 13 and a third innings, his ERA was actually 6.08, 18 hits, 11 runs, 9 earned, but 17 to 2 strikeout to walk ratio. And I think that his like ERA got blown up by one just particularly awful game. I think you're looking at in Schwarin. I almost wonder if Schwarin's more likely to pitch in the bullpen for the Red Sox this year than Darwinzon Hernandez is.
I mean, he's in AAA and Darwin's in AA, so that would be a good logical step.
And higher ceiling for Hernandez, I would say, too.
Oh, way higher, yeah.
But, I mean, Taylor's a guy who I think could help this year, especially, and it looks like they think that as well by adding him to the 40.
Yeah, but the thing with Schwarin's not on the 40, though. So, like, ahead of him, you're going to have guys like Lakins, Brewer, Taylor, etc.
Good point. Very good point. Yeah, I mean, if you look at – I just wanted to look up Taylor's game by game real quick. Yeah, Taylor, he basically had – his last start of the fall league, he gave up 4 runs on 5 hits in an inning. He did have a couple. I mean, he gave up runs in multiple games, but that last outing really kind of skewed the ERA and the. Pretty heavily.
The key with him is the 17 strikeouts in 13 innings to only 2 walks,
and it was spread out pretty evenly.
Like he just strikes. I mean, the stuff is legit, as we talked about. It's mid 90s fastball plus cutter, like breaking ball. So yeah, he's an interesting guy.
Yeah. So I mean, good showings out of all the pitchers who spent the whole time down there. The hitters, Dahlbeck had a pretty decent outing in the fall league. Quiroz had a pretty good outing in the fall league, and he's now gone. Ockamy really could have gone a little better. But, yeah, kind of the postmortem right there. All right, well, so for the next 15 minutes, Ian, or so, let's just – what we want to do for the third segment here is just run down the top 20 and then maybe a few guys outside of the top 20. And we'll kind of maybe go back and forth, Ian, and then we'll tell the other person why we think they're wrong or not. On 2019 Red Sox Major Leaguer, 2019 Red Sox trade chip, including this coming off season, the 2018-19 off season, or none of the above. You ready?
Well, yeah, and I think just kind of setting the stage, we were talking about a little bit before, but the hitting wise, the lineup is set. Like. The only move left is they're going to move one of the catchers, but otherwise, position player wise, they're locked in at the major league level. pitching is where it gets interesting. They obviously need a bunch of stuff here. And so when we're talking about guys like potential trade chips in mind, we're looking in any sort of deal for a starting pitcher or reliever if they choose to go that route rather than free agency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I think we have projected. Sorry if you said this, but two relievers, and a starter. Does that sound right to you? I think that's kind of where I'm at in terms of, they probably add, Eovaldi or some other starter.
Well, I think they want to re-sign Eovaldi.
I think they do too. I think it's just, the clubhouse fits there.
Yeah. He's got the respect of everyone, which, doesn't matter, but it does, I guess, somehow.
So we have, as our projections on the website right now, we have, for other guys who are out there, there's J.A. Happ, Jeremy Hellickson, Patrick Corbin, if they really want to just punt the 2019 draft. They've already got their top pick moved back 10 places. If they sign Patrick Corbin, they would lose their second and fifth highest picks. The fifth highest pick would probably be the compensation pick for Kimbrel, actually. So that would actually be kind of interesting. So they'd really only lose their second highest pick because they'd be losing the compensation for Kimbrel.
But it also locks in that they'd be over for the foreseeable future, which...
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know about the foreseeable future because they've got so many players coming off the books the next 2 years.
They do, but they have to pay Sale next year. They have to pay Bogarts next year.
Well, it depends who they keep. That's what I'm saying.
Right. If they want to keep the team they have, yeah.
Yeah,
because they're going to have to pay Mookie Betts and Sale in the next 2 years, which is a lot.
That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Also, we list Drew Pomerantz, who I don't think Pomerantz signing would be in lieu of an Eovaldi or another starter. I think that's hey, we'll bring you into camp. Do you think Pomerantz gets a major league deal?
Yeah, he'll get
probably, right?
$3 million from some team.
But it's just hey, we'll pay you $3 million to come into camp. We'll give you an opt out before the season starts and after 2 months. Does he have options? I don't even know if he has options. But at any rate, we'll give you an opt-out, and we don't know what your role is going to be, but if your stuff is back, then we'll find a role for you in the Major League club. Like they claimed it was during the World Series last year when they then didn't use him. But, yeah, Pomerantz could be an interesting low-risk, high-reward type guy. But then we have 2 spots in the bullpen where they could bring in guys in. And our list currently includes names like Joe Kelly, David Robertson, Kelvin Herrera, Tony Sipp, Adam Ottavino, Andrew Miller, Zach Britton, Craig Kimbrel, Juris Familia, and even a trade for Alex Wilson, which Mike is super high on right now. He thinks that Dombrowski's going to trade for Alex Wilson back from the Tigers. Wilson was a setup guy this past year. I'm inclined to agree they signed 2 guys. I don't know what their plan is as far as the closer. I don't know if they're serious about it maybe being either Barnes or Brazier.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I would want at least a Robertson type. I'd like a Robertson and an Ottavino in a perfect world. I don't know that they want to outlay that much money on the bullpen.
I think Robertson makes a lot of sense.
Robertson apparently wants to stay near his home in Rhode Island, which is apparently where his wife is from. So that basically narrows it to the Red Sox, Yankees, and Mets, right? That narrows
maybe the Phillies.
Maybe depending on
I don't know, but
means.
I agree.
But anyway, yeah. So that's what we're looking at. So I think generally what this says is on the hitting side, players likely to come up and contribute will be in the case of injury, right? It'll be in a case where the Red Sox have someone who's hurt, and they need a Zue Lin or a Sam Travis or even, maybe not a Josh Ockme, but, a Michael Chavis even. Maybe that's how you get a guy like Chavis his debut. These guys who could come up. Whereas in the bullpen, there are even in the rotation potential, although I guess maybe not the rotation, because if they sign someone and they still have Brian Johnson and Hector Velasquez, that's a lot of starting depth if they want to continue using Johnson and Velasquez as the swingmen that they did last year, which I think is a very good use of those 2 guys. The bullpen is where there are going to be a lot of chances to come up and contribute for an extended period of time in a real way, as opposed to just being a guy up on the roster. So, Ian, do you want the odds or the evens on the guys that we have ranked? Don't look. Just pick one.
Evens.
Okay. So we'll start with Michael Chavis. third baseman / first baseman. He'll be in Pawtucket the whole year, presumably healthy and eligible to play the whole year. Finished the year really well last year, but coming off a wrist injury that pulled him out of the AFL. And I think there's a chance he contributes next year. I think he's close to ready. I think he's a guy they want to keep around. I don't know how that happens. He'd have to pass Sam Travis and Josh Ockamy on the first base depth chart, because I think that's where it happens. Because I think at third base, the Red Sox would be more inclined to play Eduardo Nunez or Brock Holt or even a Zue Lin potentially over Chavis at this point.
I concur.
But I could see him contributing. I don't know. I think his trade value is so wonky because of the injuries and the suspension, but he played well. I can't see him being the type of guy they trade. I think he potentially comes up next year, at the very least in September. As I throw it to you as you yawn. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I agree. I think that he's close. Obviously, not playing in the AFL was not ideal, but right. he had a good year when he came back from injury this year. He hit pretty well in Pawtucket. He's got to still need some refinement with his approach, but the potential skills are there at the plate, and they can figure out the defense.
Yeah, I mean, it's not optimal for a 5'10" guy at first base. I don't even think he's 5'10". But
I mean, Pierce isn't that big, though, is he?
Well, that's literally what I was about to say.
Yeah.
Physique-wise, he's not that much different than Steve Pierce.
Yeah,
if you're okay with playing Steve Pierce, if you're okay with playing Steve Pierce at first base, Chavis isn't that much smaller. I mean, he's smaller, but it's an inch or two. And if he can learn to play it well and maybe use his little bit more of athleticism to go left to right a little better for what he can't do vertically, it could work. All right, I'll throw to you, Ian. This is an easy one. Tristan Casas, third baseman, first baseman, who we project to play in Greenville this year.
I believe he will not get traded, and I believe he will not play in the big leagues this year.
Yeah, that's a pretty easy one. There's
not a lot to say with him.
I've got an easy one at number 3 right now with left-hander Jake Groom. Groom's probably not going to be ready to start the year. He's only going to be ready mid-season. I can't see them getting, if that. I can't see them getting value for a guy who's out with Tommy John, who actually we should mention, on the topic of Jake Groom, recently, 2 things. Recently posted a video on Instagram of him throwing, so he is back throwing again. And also, he listed the day that he got hurt. Ian, I don't know if you saw this, that I mentioned this.
I did.
The day he got hurt was March 24th. We were at that game.
I meant to do it in anticipation. I wanted to look back at my pitch log to see if the last pitch was noticeably slower or anything, but I forgot to do it.
Were you and Chaz there and I wasn't?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you were there.
Was I there? Because I remembered seeing him pitch.
Yeah, you videoed it, so I think you were there.
I did video it. That's right. Yeah. And then I went over to talk to you, and you got camera shy.
I
was there. You were charting. That's right. I was taking video. It's on my Twitter account.
Look at that and see. I'm going to look at that, and I might tweet it out if it's interesting. But
at SP Chris Hatfield, I retweeted the video pretty recently, somewhere around the 20th.
Because he shoved that outing. He was 94, 96 with a 70 breaking ball,
and it would explain why. I don't remember him coming out early. It would explain why they didn't get the Tommy John right away. It wasn't like he pitched and he heard the pop and they knew he was screwed.
Yeah, it was something that kind of just happened.
Yeah, it took a couple months. Number 4 for me, Ian, is Bobby Dahlbeck, third baseman from Portland, or who we have projected, I presume, starting in. Well, he'll probably start in Portland. He'll start in Portland because if they keep both Chavis and Ockamy.
Correct. I think there's a decent chance he gets traded, and it's kind of the stuff we talked about with the strikeout discussion at the big league club. They have Devers at third base. Dahlbeck would be a more prototypical first baseman physically, but you're wasting his arm there because he's got a 70 arm, and I think he's a good defender at third base, frankly, for me.
Yep.
I think that he's their prime trade chip value-wise if they were to make a move.
But like we just said, it's not entirely likely they make a move. I almost wonder if Dahlbeck's really more of a mid-season trade chip, Ian.
Yeah, he could be, because as you said, for what they need to acquire, I don't think they would be giving up someone of Dahlbeck's caliber.
Yeah,
unless they go out and surprise us and get some really good young cost-controlled pitcher, or same with a reliever.
Because someone will probably ask, do you think that Dahlbeck could headline a trade for a Mets starter, like a Syndergaard or a DeGrom?
they would get laughed out of the building if they offered him as the headliner for a package of that.
Yeah, yeah. It would need to be like
he would be like third piece.
Dahlbeck. It would need to be like Dahlbeck, Hernandez, and the other team would have to be really high on one or both of them, and you'd have to include like
Andrew Benintendi,
Tanner Houck.
No, you wouldn't. You would have to include like Andrew Benintendi.
Yeah,
they're not.
How many years does Syndergaard have left? Oh, he's got 3 years left, doesn't he?
Yeah, they're not getting either of those guys for anyone in the system. There's not a chance.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, next up for me is Darwinzon Hernandez. Coming off a strong AFL, I could see him being a trade chip. I don't think he will be. He strikes me, based on everything we're hearing, as potentially being in that sort of Devers, we really like this guy lane. Especially where he throws hard. We know Dombrowski loves that. Will they be tempted to move him to the bullpen this year, is the question.
Yes, they'll be very tempted. I think they do, but
I think it comes down to what they do this offseason. If they get 2 out of the like Robertson, Ottavino, Miller, Britton type level guys to come in, I don't think it happens. I think if they wind up just kind of filling in with like the Tony Sips of the world and kind of lower level guys like that, I think it makes it more likely to happen. Gun to my head, I think they maybe give him a cup, especially since he's on the 40-man in September. So I'd say he probably comes up this year. I don't know how. It's possible that he is a key contributor this year. I'll say that. I don't think that's likely.
I would agree. I don't think he's up until like the end of the year if he does for a cup of coffee.
Right.
And if then it would be they would bring him in. I mean, barring something unforeseen, I think it would be in like very specific roles, like 1 inning at most.
Yeah.
Short stints.
Although, couldn't you see him coming in early in camp, throwing some early spring training games, being lights out, and Cora being like, "Whoa, okay, there's going to be a point this season where I tell Dombrowski, get me Darwinzon."
Yeah, oh for sure. If he shoves in Major League Spring
Not
training,
unlike Brazier.
in a bullpen role like Brazier, yeah.
Not unlike
bets
Brazier.
are off. Exactly.
Yeah. All right, your next guy, Ian, is another. Well, maybe not easy one. In right-handed pitcher Tanner Houck, we've got him projected to start in Portland, I believe, right?
I think he might be at Salem, but
he might be at Salem. He might be in Portland. I'd be inclined to say Portland. Yeah, that's where we've got him projected.
I do not think he pitches in the big leagues this year.
Same.
Yeah.
Or going lightning round.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's not a lot to say on some of these guys.
Well, but I mean, it's the same thing with him. Where if they decided to move him to the bullpen, I still think he still gets a full year in the rotation, though. Is why I agree with you.
You can't bail on the rotation.
Yeah, especially because he's not on the 40. Hernandez is being on the 40. I could see Hernandez a month in having 5 starts where he walks like 5 guys in each start, and they just say, "Okay, you know what? Let's do this." Or like 2 months in. Whereas with Houck, I think they would give him more leeway.
Exactly.
Number 7's a pretty easy one for me. Brian Mata. I think we've got him projected to. Yeah, we do have him projected to return to Salem to start the year. I think there's too much to work on there. I think they're going to try and teach him a new pitch. I don't think he even sniffs the majors this year. Easy one for you at number 8, Ian. Shortstop Anthony Flores, who is most likely not even going to be at a full season affiliate to start the year, although he could go to Greenville, if not on opening day, maybe a couple months in on the Xander Bogaerts plan.
Yeah, he's not playing in the big leagues this year. And I mean, I don't think he gets traded, but if you're a team and you're trying to trade with the Red Sox, you're going to ask about him.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. Number 9 for me, C.J. Chatham, shortstop, who we project to start the year in Portland. I don't see it. He needs to prove he can stay healthy. He needs to prove he can hit at Portland, and then I think he's the type of guy who's going to need to prove he can hit in Pawtucket. It's interesting, the situation with Xander Bogaerts, whether they might want to get him up to Pawtucket July, August. But you've got Zue Lin in camp. They're comfortable playing Brock Holt at short. I can't see how Chatham fits in the majors for them this year. Not on the 40.
I concur.
Ian, at number 10, this is an interesting one. Right-hander Durbin Feltman, who we project on the website, and I tend to agree, I don't know if you do, to start in Portland at the beginning of the year. Trade chip, major league contributor for the Red Sox, or neither? I think we agreed neither is not on the table. It's one of the first two.
I think he's up in the big leagues this year.
Same. Chances they trade him, I just can't see him having the value to make him worth trading.
He's a righty reliever. Like, those don't have trade value. A minor league reliever. Excuse me. I should have said that. I would not be surprised at all if he's the closer by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Really? The closer?
Okay, I should say closer. Late it depends what they do in the offseason. If they go like the blow up, remember when they did bullpen by committee? What was it like?
2003.
Yeah. If they try that, I wouldn't rule it out. I don't think they're going to do that, though. I think they're going to sign someone like Ottavino and try to have him as the closer.
Yeah.
And if they do that, he's going to be like I could see him pitching leverage innings in the playoffs.
Yeah, but even if you sign an Ottavino or a Robertson, that's not the type of guy like a Kimbrel where like they need to be brutal for an extended period to lose the closer's job. Whereas Ottavino or Robertson, you could say like, look, this guy Feltman is shoving.
I mean, this is the thing. Like unlike Hernandez, obviously Feltman's not a starter. Mm-hmm. Isn't like pitching the rotation now. Like he is a pure bullpen reliever. This stuff is what it is. There's nothing's going to change about who he is now versus who he is in the big leagues. Like everything, he is what he is, and what he is nasty. So you might as well just stop wasting bullets in the minors. Like they did it last year. I mean, he got up to Salem last year. He's going to start in Portland this year. If he shoves there, I mean, he's going to go to, I would say with almost certainty, he's getting a non-roster invitee to spring training.
Yeah, Feltman for sure. Yeah, I'd be stunned if he doesn't.
And then he'll start next year in Portland, and if he shoves there, he'll be in Pawtucket by May, and if he's still shoving there, he'll be up in the big leagues by June. And he won't look back because, I mean, his stuff is filthy. So it's just, I think if they go like a 1-year option at closer, I think that signals to me that they think he's their long-term closer.
Or that Darwinzon could be, or
that they think they have a closer internal or even Brazier or they have some sort of candidate internal that they want to give a chance to close in 2020.
Barnes.
Yeah, maybe not next year, but in 2020.
Yeah,
they're looking for
right.
that. Yeah,
I want one more year of Barnes pitching the way he did this past year before I hand him the closer's job, or I want him to take it from someone this year.
Playoff Barnes that stuff was very interesting.
Yeah, Joe Kelly. Playoff Joe Kelly's a closer.
Yeah, he is. That
was disgusting.
Yeah.
Feltman, I think, is one of the more interesting ones, but I agree with you. Pretty easy one for me at 11, outfielder Nick Decker. We've got him projected, I think, to start in Greenville. No, we have him projected to start in Lowell, actually. I think it's a toss-up, Lowell, Greenville.
Now he's in Greenville.
Well, it depends in part on who's there, too, because on the projected roster for Greenville, we have Tyler Esplin and Dearden and Cole Brannon. Decker, I think we like him better than those three. Okay, I still think it's a question. It depends on
if you're first.
He got one. What did he get? 2 games.
He's going to
year.
I would put significant money on that.
Fair enough. Anyway, I don't see him going to the majors. I don't think he's got nearly enough value to be worth as a trade chip. So
I agree.
Okay. Tough one for you at number 12, right-hander Mike Schwarin, who will be back in Pawtucket to start the year. One would assume in the rotation.
I mean, I don't think he gets traded because I don't think he has that much trade value. But I'm also not sure he pitches in the big leagues next year because he's not on the 40-man roster. But saying that, I think what's going to depend on is what they do in the major league bullpen with guys like Brian Johnson and Hector Velasquez. Because if they keep those guys on the roster, then that's the kind of role Schwarin would occupy. But if they, for some reason, like those guys aren't on the roster, because Johnson's out of options, right?
Yeah, that's why he was up all last year.
So if Johnson is like not on the roster at all, he would get claimed on waivers too. So he would be on another team. They'd have Velasquez, but looking at their minor league depth, I would take Schwarin over anyone not named Stephen Wright in terms of if they needed a spot starter for a game.
Yep.
So
that's interesting.
It's going to depend on what happens with those guys.
I like that. Schwarin does need to be protected next offseason.
Yeah,
which
so
I think
he probably would get added at some point this year. I think he pitches in the big leagues at some point.
Yeah, I think he pitches in the big leagues, and I'm with you. I don't know. I mean, if he got traded, it would be as a second piece. I don't know, unless it's like a minor. So, but look at it this way.
If it was like Nate Eovaldi for Mike Schwarin.
That's what I was just about to say. It's like Jalen Beeks got them Nate Eovaldi. I think it would be a trade like that mid-season, where they have a piece they need. It's not a key piece. It's probably going to be due to injury, or I guess if you're looking at the bullpen, everybody stinks or something. Yeah, I'm with you. I think, well, I think they would have to, if they get into that situation, I think it's likely he'd be a type of guy they'd be okay trading because he's the type of guy that another team might value more. But yeah, as of right now, I think more likely he plays in the majors. Easy one for me at 12. Well, let's just skip these next two because it's pretty easy. Third baseman, Brandon Howlett at 13 and Danny Diaz at 14. They're not playing in the majors. Do you think either of them gets traded in?
Teams will ask about him, but unless, I mean, it's going to depend on the thing with like if they were getting traded, they need to trade at some point. They're going to have to trade from that third base logjam, like depth wise. Yeah, they're going to have to trade it at some point, but it all depends on what they're going out to acquire. Because like those guys aren't going to headline a package for a prominent major leaguer,
right?
But those are the type of guys that Dombrowski will throw in. Well, even in the offseason, though, he could throw one of them in as like a third piece in a deal if they actually make a significant move. So it's going to depend on what they do. Teams will ask about them for sure, though.
I'm going to throw a trade chip on Brandon Howlett midseason.
I mean, they could ask about him, so we'll see.
I could see that.
I mean, they like Howlett a lot, though, so it'll be interesting.
That's true, but I mean, they also like Casas a lot. Well, Casas is moving.
But he's a first baseman, so it doesn't matter.
That's true. That's true. And they could also move Howlett to the outfield. That was the plan before Casas got hurt, was to get him out innings in left field.
Correct. Yeah, because he might have some flexibility.
Yeah. Number 15, which I think is me, right? Jarren Duran. Interesting player. Center fielder who we project, I think, to start in Salem, I would assume, right? The way he raked.
Probably.
Yeah, the way he raked in Greenville last year. I could see them moving him. He's obviously not going to play in the majors this year unless they did something. Unless they did the Peter Gammons playoff pinch runner.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. If they really wanted to go outside the box and they were like, we want the fastest guy in our system. That's who it would be. I'm just saying. They're not going to do it, but it would be.
No.
That would be.
They were okay with Blake Swihart as their pinch runner entering this playoff.
How'd that work out in that 17-inning game?
Yeah, right.
Well, that wasn't Swihart. It was Kinsler, but still.
No, the Kinsler made the error. The pinch runner
Kinsler was the pinch runner who got thrown out at the plate also.
Oh, that's right. That's right, too. I was going to say there wasn't the 18-inning game, but the game where Sandy Leone pinch ran.
Yeah, I mean, they had – yeah. That's wild to think about that they didn't have any pinch runners last year.
I think we talked about that on that episode of the podcast. Anyway, yeah. I mean, that's not going to happen with Duran, but no. I could see I could see them trying to trade him. Again, it'd be a mid-season for a piece they need. But I can see him as a trade chip.
Yeah, sure.
Interesting one for you at 16, right-hander Travis Lakins, Pawtucket bullpen.
He'll be in the big leagues this year.
Think they trade him?
No. He'll be in the big leagues this year. I mean, relievers just don't have that much trade value, like minor league relievers, quote unquote. Yeah. Major league relievers do.
Well, I mean, consider the fact it's kind of interesting that they went and got Addison Reed for minor league relievers.
Yeah, but they
Gerson Batista,
but that's
Jamie
in
Callahan.
season.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying with Lakins.
Oh yeah. Sorry, yeah. But I think if you with all those guys, none of them were like big league ready at that point. Like,
Callahan came up.
Callahan was in like Double-A.
No, Callahan was in Triple-A.
He wasn't big league ready. He wasn't big league ready.
They brought him up in September.
The Mets did, yeah. But the Red Sox.
By the way, outrighted him recently as a free agent.
Yeah,
recovering from shoulder surgery.
The Red Sox work was shocking if you've seen his delivery. Lakins is someone who, if you're going to trade him, it doesn't make sense to trade him. Just call him up, and I think there's a non-zero chance if they go cheap in the bullpen, he opens the season in the big leagues next year. Mm-hmm. Non-zero. I don't think it's likely, but there's a chance.
Yeah, I think they keep him in Pawtucket just because. I mean, now that he's on the 40, there's a better chance of that.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen that they've even added guys like Pointer and Walden who weren't
what's
on
his
the
name?
40.
Yeah, Walden started last year in the majors, so
So who the hell knows? But
exactly.
I mean, they're not going to keep guys up. Like, I mean, look what happened with Workman and Robbie Scott. I mean, they were on the 40. They said, screw it, you're not producing in camp. Get down to Pawtucket. Show us you can pitch. Mm-hmm. That's kind of an interesting situation. Interesting one for me at 17. First baseman Josh Ockamy. Definitely not a trade chip because he's after the showing he had in the AFL, his value is not that high right now. I can't see the trade.
Well, he can't be traded, right?
No, he can.
No, between now and the Rule 5 draft, can he be traded?
Sure, he can.
Oh, okay.
That team would then need to protect him.
Gotcha.
And actually, that kind of does lead me to one thing I did want to say. If he gets traded, it's in the next month. Because some team says, look, we're going to take him in Rule 5 if you don't trade him to us. Because that happened one year with Bo Vaughn. Do you remember? the
I
guy
do
who took
remember
the crazy
Boban.
headshots every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, they traded him to Texas for Wes Littleton because they said, look, we're gonna pick him in Rule 5. We'd rather trade for him and not have to keep him on the 25-man roster. We'll give you Wes Littleton. With the Red Sox, I could see a team approaching them, or them approaching a team and saying, hey, you could pick this guy in Rule 5, or we could trade him to you, and you'll be able to keep him in AAA if you've got room on the 40, or if you don't have room on the 40. I think if he gets traded, it's in the next month. I think if Akami's still in the system after Rule 5, I don't think he gets traded this year. I bet he gets a September call-up if he's still in the system in September. Why not? I mean,
We'll
the
see.
tough thing is he's redundant with Sam Travis, right? But I don't know. I mean, I guess he's behind Chavis now potentially too. Maybe not. You know what? I retract that. I think.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
I think neither. I think he's a trade chip for the next month, though. Number 18 for you, Ian, Nick Northcutt.
He's not.
No,
He's a trade. He could get traded. I mean, obviously, just because he's part of that third base logjam, but he's not. I doubt it.
Right. Number 19 for me, Alex Scherf, right-hander. We have Scherf on the site projections slated to start the season in Greenville again, which I'm inclined to agree with, but I think he can move up to Salem quickly. I don't see him having a ton of trade value, and he's not going to make the majors this year. So
I concur.
Yep. The last one is pretty easy for you, Ian. Never has played in the United States, outfielder Gilberto Jimenez.
He's a trade chip, but I don't think he's getting traded.
I don't think
he's not. He's
I think after a year in the U.S., if he does what he showed in Instructs, he could definitely be a trade chip, though.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the top 20. And let me throw to you on the projected rosters. Anybody left in our projected rosters in Pawtucket who you think could come up this year, who we haven't talked about? I'll start with Josh Taylor, who's now on the 40.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I could see him coming up for sure.
I agree.
I
think it's going to be interesting. They actually have 3 lefties on the 40, and none of whom we project to start in the big leagues. And so
where's
Pointer, Taylor, and Scott are all in the Pawtucket bullpen.
Okay, yeah. Right.
And
right.
I wonder if those 3, it's going to be like basically whoever pitches the best or whichever 2 pitch the best for the first couple months in the minors will have a chance at a major league call up, and the third one's getting DFA'd.
Could also depend on if they sign a Britton or a Miller, though.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, that changes the calculus a ton.
It does, yeah.
And what role that guy's being used in. If they're going to put that guy just in the 9th, maybe that means, we'll bring Bobby Pointer up to pitch to the lefty in the 5th.
Fair points.
So, yeah, that's interesting. On the other side of the ball, I mean, Zue Lin will come up.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Travis, I could see coming up, especially if he hits well.
Yep.
Let's see who else. I mean, Chavis we talked about. Marco Hernandez needs all of the at bats. He hasn't played in 2 years, so if he's healthy, I don't think he's even an option.
Yeah,
unless they have multiple injuries.
I agree.
But how about guys that are off the 40? I mean, anybody else that you could see?
Not really.
Not really. Dahlbeck. I mean, we talked about, but maybe I don't think it happens. Yeah, I just can't say the one. Well, you know, an interesting outside the box one I'll throw at you, Ian. How about Tate Matheny? If they have multiple outfield injuries,
they have the outfield depth is like they'd play like Zue Lin in the outfield.
And I think Matheny is a guy who they think might clear DFA waivers potentially. Yeah. And if he didn't,
I mean, the one for me that's interesting is what they're going to do if they trade a catcher. Because right now they only have 2 catchers on the 40-man roster. So if they trade one, they're going to have to add another.
Well, they have 3, you mean, and that would leave them with 2.
Yes, that's what I meant to say. And internally, like, are they going to like Oscar Hernandez? Or are they just going to bring back up or I guess they signed Juan Centeno.
Juan Centeno actually is a defense first catcher who has
he did play in the big leagues.
He has major league experience. He's played in the major leagues every year since 2014.
But still, I don't know.
Not a lot. He's an up and down guy, but
that's just a little interesting to see what happens with one of those spots. But other than that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I could see Centeno. I think is a guy they went out. And, I mean, it's an early minor league free agent signing, which means to me that he was something of a priority for them, or at least signing a guy like him. I could see him being the answer there. I think he's a little bit more than a Dan Butler, who's just there to be the emergency guy to come up, and they like him handling pitchers in AAA. But it wouldn't surprise me either if they went and got another minor league free agent catcher for AAA. If you look at, I mean, I guess you have like a Jake Romansky who played in Salem last year, we've got him projected for Salem. I think I'd be more inclined to see him in Pawtucket.
Well, they have like Austin Rye, who's in Portland.
Austin Rye spent last year in Portland. He could definitely be a candidate for AAA as well. That's true. Do you? Well, I mean, I guess it depends who's healthy. They've had 3 healthy catchers on the Pawtucket roster before, so yeah. All right. Well, I think that closes that up. Let's really quick get to emails, Ian.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. We have a couple of emails. And again, send us your emails to podcast@soxprospects.com. Like we like to say, we want to talk about what you want to hear about, even if it means that we have to bring Gmail up and have it load really slowly. Okay, here we go. But yeah, we want to talk about the things that you have questions about, that you have concerns about, that you have thoughts about. So send them our way. Even if there isn't really a question, just kind of like, hey, guys, talk about this. I think it's interesting. Our first question is from Aaron, and Aaron says, hey, guys, thanks. He's got a multi-part question, Ian. He says, thanks as always for the amazing content. We're lucky as fans to have the level of depth you guys provide. Damn straight. He's got a multi-part question, so feel free to break it up, ignore parts of it. I was struck by this Fangraph study from February and lacks 2018 data, but so take it as you will, looking at which defensive spots have lost chances to make plays over the last decade. As you might expect, the rise of strikeouts and homers meant that the outfielders have been impacted the most, but among infielders, second basemen have lost the greatest number of chances, down almost 20% since 2007. Citing that data and writing in The Athletic, Eno Saris noted his belief that second base is losing chances due in part to shifting. Indeed, the Fangraphs chart seems to show second base has had the biggest decline from 2015 to 2017, which lines up with the proliferation of shifts. And anecdotally, it often seems the shift involves third base or shortstop moving more than the second baseman. So the question, good intro. We're all together on that, right? Shifting, you move guy over, second baseman loses chances to field the ball. 1, are you seeing shifts be a normal part of the game for the minor leagues? If so, are there similarities in how the affiliates are shifting and how the big league club handles it, i.e. an attempt to get the kids on the same page so when they get to Boston, they know the terminology/locations most likely to be used? Let's start there before we read the rest of the email. Ian, I have noticed that. Have you?
Yeah, they're shifting.
Yeah, they're shifting a lot more. I was really struck by the number of guys shifting on both teams. When I saw Salem play in Potomac this year, I caught something like 8 games there. I think at one point Potomac was shifting on like 4 guys in the Salem lineup. It was like Jerry Downs, Dahlbeck, a couple other guys. They were shifting, I think like maybe not Baldwin, but they were shifting a number of players, and the Red Sox were shifting as well. And that makes sense for the reasons that he states, right? The reason Aaron tells us, get him used to shifting, get him used to the positions, get him used to seeing the ball from that side. I mean,
it is a new position you're going to be playing, like especially with certain things like turning the double play if you're a middle infielder from the other side of the rubber, like shortstop having to come across. Like there's footwork wise, it's a little different, and it's a different angle too. Mm-hmm. We kind of seen it like angles in terms of like where you're positioned is kind of an underrated thing. Because I think about someone like Jarren Duran, who he had never played the outfield before, they put him out in center field, and he kind of struggled out there with his reads, but then they moved him out to right field, which is the same angle as playing second base where he played in college, and he looked a lot better because he was a lot more comfortable with seeing the ball off the bat from that, direction or angle. Mm-hmm. And it kind of, when they were transitioning to outfield, it made more sense to start him in right field where he's used to the same perspective versus center where it's a completely new thing. So,
interesting.
Just getting used to those angles and stuff is definitely important.
The second question, given the information above, should teams be less worried about second base defense? Obviously, you don't want to butcher out there, but if shifts mean that you can basically park your second baseman in one place, their ability to range to their left or right is no longer as important.
I think you're already seeing teams do that. The Cubs play friggin' Anthony Rizzo at second base.
Well, no, they
on
don't.
Shifts. On shift. No, I know, but
he's not really playing second base. It's like based on where they're positioning him, they have to consider him a second baseman.
Yeah,
or something.
No, I know. But I was trying to.
But you know what the comp is? Travis Shaw.
Yeah,
is the player to say there.
Yeah, that is a good point. I think teams are doing that. I mean, I think you see shortstop is the defensive spectrum is kind of come down to you want elite guys or above average guys. At catcher is the biggest one, I think.
Yep.
Center field and shortstop are the other two.
I think it's shortstop over center, but yeah, I think those are the three.
But I think catcher is by far the biggest one.
And I think this kind of leads us into his third question, which is as a natural follow-on to that. I'm wondering about someone like Michael Chavis, whose defense may not be able to stick at third base, suddenly the position getting the most plays in the infield thanks to shifts, but whose bat might not be good enough for first base or the outfield. In the past, when someone has asked about him being at second base, you have largely been skeptical. But does the above data change your thinking on that? Is there anyone else you could think of who maybe could slot over to second base a la Travis Shaw this year for the Brewers and be just okay defensively but provide a lot of value bat-wise there? I guess broadly what I'm asking is if you think the above data is notable and should be impacting teams as they make future plans, or is this all a lot of noise? Great question, Aaron. Thanks so much.
Yeah, that's an excellent question.
Chavis is the one that comes to mind before I even get to the third question.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think Chavis's best future role is a guy that can play
first, second, short, first, second, third, left. Sorry, I didn't mean to say short. First, second, third, left. I agree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do. It is interesting though. Like, I think they wanted to try him at second. I've seen him take ground balls there, but he just keeps getting hurt. And it's just, he hasn't been on the field enough, or he's suspended. And it's kind of like put a damper on their plans. But I'm really interested to see what they do with him next spring training for that. Like, he's on the 40-man right now. So it's like, there's no holding back. Like, you need to start, he's in Pawtucket. We need to start seeing what their long-term plans are for him.
Yep.
And I would not be, as the emailer alluded to, I would not be surprised at all if they came into camp and were like, we're just going to try him at second base only.
Second base only?
Yeah, because he needs reps there. I mean, if they're going to he's not going to be a third baseman for the Red Sox, and I don't think he's going to be he could be a first baseman maybe, not only, but like primarily try to get him some reps at second and first and transition away from third for now.
He's gotten reps at first base for a couple of years now. I think with second base, what I think is more likely is he goes to Pawtucket, works with Bruce Crabb, second base. And at some point mid-season, they give him the first shot there. Because remember, there are plenty of guys who we hear about, they're working out at this position, they're working out at this position. I mean, we don't see it for a few months.
Pawtucket's played like Jansen Whitty at second base, too. Like,
Whitty played at second base the whole way up for parts of games. I mean, I don't think that's quite the same.
No. My point is, though, that like he's not like the most agile player, athletic-wise.
Agreed. But I'm saying it's different when you're exposing the guy to the position for the first time.
Yeah, Whitty's played like 2 games there. Oh, no, he played 30 games last year, or 2 years ago, but only 1 game last year. But yeah,
but
there's a really good email, and I think he is the prime candidate, though, as you said. Look, just eyeball.
Anybody else?
Because Dahlbeck's 6'4". You're not going to play him at second base.
And the thing is, I don't think you've got a problem with him at third or first, bat-wise.
It takes a very unique skill set for someone to fit that role, and Chavis really is like the best option for it.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got Netzer in Portland, who's an actual second baseman. I mean, Chatham, I think with the shortstop, it's not quite the same.
Doesn't matter. And then, like, going down, spectrum. It doesn't, the Salem team, Durant maybe moves back to second eventually, but, like, his athleticism's wasted there, so I get why they want him in the outfield.
I wouldn't mind if he kept that in his toolbox, though.
Yes, I agree. I mean, as we saw kind of this year where they discussed putting Mookie Betts at second base, being able to play other positions is always valuable.
Which I think they need to be more...
They should.
I would pick it at second, man.
It was very good in the infield.
Devin Marrero, Mookie Betts infield in Salem was magical. Yeah. All right. Our next question comes from our dude Lendell Martin. He says, "Hey Chris and Ian, I was looking at the 2019 projected rosters and noticed that both Danny Diaz and Anthony Flores were projected to start next season at Lowell. I thought they might start. This is Lendell. I thought they might start in the Gulf Coast League since they seem to miss a decent chunk of time in 2018." Granted, it's still early in the season, but wanted to hear your thoughts since Lowell seems a bit aggressive to me. Thanks for the podcast, as always. Thank you for your email. Okay, so are they still both projected on our website? Yeah, so the website projections have Diaz and Flores and Lowell. Let me see if you agree with this, Ian. I would say Diaz, it's a question of whether he starts in the Gulf Coast League or Lowell. I think Flores could start anywhere from the Gulf Coast League to Greenville.
I agree. I think it's going to come down to how they look in spring training and then extended spring training. Like with Diaz, he needs to come into camp in shape. I mean, because he gained a ton of weight, and it wasn't by his own fault. It was he grew from 6'1" to 6'5" in the span of like a year. Like if that happens, your body's going to get weird.
He was 17, you mean?
Yeah. Like your body's going to get weird, but like he was like 240. That's going to be the title, by the way.
Yes, it is.
He was like 240 when I saw him, and like he's a big boy, but he's still like sneaky agile, kind of. Even though he's like a 30 runner, it's really weird. But with him, if he comes into camp in shape next year and like hits I mean, I would put him in Lowell because just challenge them. Like, they're the type of guys I would challenge if I'm an organization.
Yep. 2 players who got over $1 million signing bonuses.
Yeah. And Flores is a different story. Flores, I don't think there's any chance Flores starts in the GCL. I think he's either Lowell or because he's polished. Like, Flores has the approach. Like, even in instructs, you can see like he goes up to the plate with a plan. He knows what he's doing. He's got contact skills. Like, I think him, it's like 80% Lowell, 20% like no 60% Lowell, 20% extended, then Greenville, and maybe like 5% Greenville and 15% whatever GCL. Diaz is like 50-50 GCL and Lowell for me.
I think it's slightly more likely that Diaz goes to the GCL, in part because of the hamate injury this year, and in part because, I mean, so he hit 6 bombs in 26 games, which for the DSL is crazy.
Insane, but he struck out like 700 times.
That's better than Devers. I mean, that's who was by far the best power prospect.
It's more than Bogarts, and Bogarts hit like 6 in the entire year when he was in the DSL.
Exactly. The thing that concerns me a little bit is the 27 Ks in 26 games in the DSL. He only hit 238. The on-base percentage was 283. There's power there. I think the other skills need refinement.
Well, that's what I was saying, that Flores has a much better hit tool.
Well, that's why I'm saying
he could handle. I think he could handle more advanced pitching quicker.
Agreed, and that's what I was going to say. But so that's for Diaz. I think it's most likely, and plus there's the question of third base versus first base, because you said he was working out at both positions in instructs, switching with Tristan Casas.
He was, yeah,
third and first base. I think there's the defensive questions with Diaz, the body that he needs to get used to playing in, and the refinement that's needed, that I think makes it more likely he's in the Gulf Coast League. Whereas I think with Flores, I'd be surprised if he's not in Lowell. I'm not quite as bullish on him in Greenville as I am.
I mean, I said like 5% to start the year, and like 15% he goes extended Greenville. So it's not like think there's a high chance, but you never know.
Yeah. But anyway, great question, Lindell. I appreciate it. Again, podcast@soxprospects.com. Thank you, as always, for your emails, everybody. And I think that's going to wrap it up for us. We want to thank you for listening. Big thank you to our podcast producer / editor, Joe Tetrault. You can follow Ian on Twitter @Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. I'm @SP Chris Hatfield. Follow the website @SoxProspects. Thank you all for listening. We will be back. If something happens in December, we'll do a podcast. If nothing happens, we may not, just because it gets a little slow. But I think we're also trying to schedule some interview podcasts, which will kind of depend on the schedules of those of the people we're hoping to talk to. So keep an eye out. Keep an eye out on our Twitter is probably the best way. Keep an eye out on the Sox Prospects news page. That's news.soxprospects.com. You can follow our fall-winter recaps there, our monthly notes that go up there. And just generally keep tabs on things there, and join our forum, man. It's forum.soxprospects.com. We're always happy to get new posters on there. Talk about what you want to hear about it, in addition to hearing about it on here. We got some good discussion going there, and I think it'd be great if we get some listeners of the podcast to join the forum. Contribute your thoughts. Don't be afraid. Join the fun. Ian, I think we're good, brother. All right. Thank you, everybody. You're on mute, but Ian, I think, is saying thanks for listening.
I said thank you for listening, everyone.
Thanks for listening, and we'll be back in your eardrums soon.